because Gaza is a long
Yes.
lifetime demo, model and example of lockdown. I remember there was this uh, Gazan actor, and he was trying to, like, he came up with a short video. It's a conversation between him and his son, and he was telling his son that the whole world is living this lockdown and pandemic. And the son, you know, I think he was like 9 years, 8 years. He was like, yeah, and so what? With this, he was like, so what does lockdown mean? And he said, the inability to move freely. And he was like, that's what we live in Gaza. He said, people cannot travel. And he said, that's normal. That's what we are living in Gaza. And,
Right.
and the father, like, the more the father gave explanation about what's happening for this little 9-year-old child, that's what he had been, that's what he knew since he was born.
Beautiful.
You know, he only knew this lockdown that is
That's right.
imposed on Gaza. And as this travels to other towns and countries in the world,
Sure.
that's why I said, probably the first time in history, maybe, that we all live this as a global family.
Right. So, you know what you're saying, absolutely, this is a leveler. What do you know, and whether there's a lot of debate about, you know, is this a real thing? Is this, you know, created? You know, and I don't really want to get into that. But what I do want to look at from my perspective, or from the yogic perspective, if you like, is the fact that it's here. And whether it's created or not, it is here. And what is, you know, what does this create for you in terms of the future? How could you see the change for humanity, for the Palestinian people, for, you know, I mean, I know in Serbia right now, people are in a terrible way, you know, and Belarus and all over the world, their regimes are becoming harder and whatever. And without getting into the political structures, what's obvious for me, and just, you know, is that there is nobody more important than anybody else. And we're all here for a very short time. So what is your vision? That's all I really wanted to know, because that vision is impressive. That vision is impressive.
Yeah, well, thinking about, again, if it's created or whatever that virus is, it's a fact. It's here. We're seeing it. Sure. We're seeing people. I have friends who were, you know, tested positive, and people died. People still, you know, they overcame. Actually, what I've been thinking about is, even when the virus is over, Palestinian would still live the same conditions of restrictions. That's also the fact, the sad reality. And my vision truly is, as we move hopefully out of this pandemic, hopefully soon, that we really connect together, to keep nurturing, again, the seed of compassion towards each other. Again, it's no longer like one group's problem, one country's, one nation's, one, you know, it's like this certain group of people, that's their problem. It's a whole worldwide problem now. And
so this has brought us together.
Yes.
This has brought us together.
Living this together, having that chance to really feel with each other.
Beautiful.
My vision is how we can take this to grow as an opportunity, as a possibility to really stop, to stand up for things. You know, seeing it's even like recently I've been reading about domestic violence. Yeah. It's increasing inside the homes. People are just like frustrated with all of this. And maybe we can be at this point where we truly change, where we see things from a different lens than being just victims. Because freedom is freedom of choice. It's becoming aware of, say, my own patterns as an individual, and then making the choice to act either from, like, where am I acting from, to choose where it's no longer an automatic response to situations around me, but you know, it's the freedom of fear, of freedom of anger, that we're free from anger, free from discrimination, free from judgments.
Yes.
That's
So so
freedom.
this hell, this restriction, this imposed situation, it's giving us, it's bringing us back to the values that we want, that we
Yes.
actually want. It's giving us a chance, all of us, to say, how do we recreate that? And can we remember it once the restrictions are lifted? Can we in the West remember what it was like to be in exactly the same situation that we've imposed on everybody else? And that's, you know, just a matter of history, just to look at that. And can we rewrite the history for our children, our children's children?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's it's so beautiful what you say.
Yeah, like be responsible for your own well-being as well as others' well-being.
That's right. That's right.
You
So
know,
there's no difference between you and I. There's no difference. There's no borders between
exactly,
countries.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Right.
The virus is not discriminating against any nationality, any nation. It's just affecting everyone. And
That's
I think this is a possibility to unite as a human family.
Yes.
Stand up for things again. Recreate. You said it. Recreate ourselves. I believe it starts with the individual. I mean, I appreciate all of the work that's being done, you know, and each one in their own place, but also it starts with the self. It's like a pebble effect, you know, it starts with me and then it grows. Once I change my perspective of how things should look like, once I start planting my seeds of the vision of how I envision things for the future, and really recreate what, like, see the future from that future, not from where we are right now, being stuck and being in lockdown, whether it's frustration or, you know, Bethlehem has truly suffered because, as you know, David, Bethlehem is a tourist city.
Yeah.
And this is like a high season where usually every year it's like, you know, there's no way to find an available room in Bethlehem at this time.
Sure.
Yeah. And as people are living depending on tourism as their main source of income, especially in Bethlehem, with no tourists coming and the closure, there's not a single person that came to Bethlehem since March 5th.
Wow.
Speaking of tourists and pilgrimages, and this is like the time before Christmas, you know, New Year. Yeah. This is like the peak. This is the season. And I am appreciating and also seeing how people are frustrated when it comes to no income now. We put all our eggs in one basket, which is tourism, and there are no tourists or work. But this is also bringing people closer, I feel, to each other in terms of also supporting one another. And the first lockdowns, the first months of the lockdown, I got a call from a friend of mine, and she said, there's this family, Eilda, and there are 8 people in one house, and they had been working in Jerusalem, some of them. Yeah. Other people are working in restaurant, and they're getting paid. There are like day-to-day payment. They're getting paid daily. They don't have salaries, and they're 8 people if you can just reach out to them. So there was this, like, you know, with one phone call here, you can also gather a lot of initiatives came out. Like people came together to support families in need. This was also very beautiful to see at the beginning of the lockdown in March and April, as we were close to Easter. Also, there was some initiatives through the government, the church. But again, like with the limited resources that people have, I saw, like, it was beautiful to see the different initiatives. So it's not about also restriction in the movement or the resource. I think it's more, you know, flexibility, not in it's in the body. but
Sure.
also it's in the mind. So how we
That's
are
right.
flexible from the practice. It's not about,
Yeah.
being super flexible in your body. It's
No.
stretch your body so you stretch your mind. And I feel this is one way to stretch our minds,
Amazing.
but get out of,
Amazing.
with the limited resources that we have, how can we all support each other? Because we do
That's right.
rise by lifting others, no?
Absolutely right. Absolutely. And it's so beautiful what you're saying, and it brings me back to the being in the moment paradigm, which people hear, it's like some sort of an amusing bit of philosophy. But when you only, you can only eat one meal, or you don't know where your next meal is coming from, as I've been in other regions of the world, and particularly in Palestine too. And you can only concern yourself with where you're at right now, because you don't know what's going to happen the next moment. We become very mindful of the moment. And in that moment, because it's the only moment we have right now, it brings about, I think, a sort of a flowering, and it makes me definitely generous. I feel a generosity and a gratefulness for your love, Eilda, and all my friends in Palestine, and all my friends in Israel and around the world. I'm very grateful to be able to stand as a human being and call you all my family. And I think this thing of calling ourselves all our family, and taking away these borders, which are just fear. I mean, I don't know where the border is, where Palestine begins and Israel ends. I have no idea where that is. I have no idea between Luxembourg and the next country. It's insane. What I feel is that the only border that exists is the one that doesn't allow anybody in London to speak to anybody else because they have no time. And now people are starting to appreciate that moment, and I feel very excited. I know people are full of fear and they're full of trepidation, but I actually feel very excited about where we're going, where we're headed, where the lives of your boys are headed, and where we're headed, and the future we're creating right now. Because right now we're creating. This is not just a conversation we're having. This is a creation of this day and all of our, the days that will follow. And I think that's where we make it a gift. That's where the great masters, the Christ, the Buddhas, Muhammad's, they all talked about, creating. What do we want to create on earth? Heaven on earth.
Exactly.
So I just wanted to throw that at you, because I'm particularly excited at this Christmas as it comes, or the celebration period, that we're creating something very special, and that the yogis, and the mystics and all the people who look inside, are starting to feel that. How do we amplify that, my love? And that's what I wanted to ask you. How do we make more of that? How do we spread that to people who maybe don't know what the hell we're talking about? Look at this and go, what on earth are these idiots talking about? How do we do that?
Well, yeah, it could be like an idiotic conversation for some people, and I feel amplifying it through being it.
Okay.
For me, as you said, being in the present moment, I also started to realize what's really important in my life, what is not. Even the consumption, the pattern of consuming. As we come closer to Christmas now, I hope there was this light where we can really connect to the essence of what Christmas is all about. It's not about just the fancy gifts and all the money that we're just spending and being in this consumerism mentality. By being who we truly are, connecting to who we truly are. And I think this pandemic was a beautiful space to retreat, to go back, to rethink of where we are standing right now. What options do we have? Who are we? Who we truly are in this? And to amplify by just being who we are. And totally, it's not easy. I mean, a lot of people could just like take the opposite side by, you know, feeling even because life is abundance, and maybe people take the opposite. For some people it's not easy to live under lockdown, and you know, we have seen people fighting over toilet paper, you know.
Here too.
Exactly. I mean, we haven't seen it here. Gladly. But throughout, like all over the world, we have seen toilet paper fights. And again, my hope is to see abundance of life out of this pandemic, and not go back to what's built in our mind as scarce. You know, scarcity, everything is rare. We have to, you know, take over the resources or we die. So I hope it's a wake-up call that it's abundance, it's not scarce. Like the world is abundance, life is abundance, nature is abundance.
So this is like half full rather than half empty. I mean,
exactly.
You know, and this, and also the other thing I want to say is, you know, you're absolutely right. The toilet paper is a horrible thing to eat. I mean, you know, if you try it, it's you wonder why people are trying to steal the bloody stuff. But yeah, there are ridiculous things like that going on, and in a way, you know, from an anthropological point of view, we haven't moved forward since, you know, we stood on our hind legs and stood up. I mean, it's still territorial. It's that tribe over there is no good, and, you know, to be avoided, and they're all lunatics and have horns growing out of their heads, and don't talk to them. And you know, and the thing is, people always say, oh, you know, he was quite a nice guy when they meet me, because they think I'm a little strange, and which means that they had an idea of me before they met me. So from afar or from close up, they think, well, weird guy, you know. And then when they speak to me for a little while, they, oh, what a nice guy, you know, because one part assumes. The first part is warning, it doesn't fit in with a picture of what I call reality. And then as you speak to that person, your ideas of reality change.
True.
And you say, okay, so there's no difference. It's a lovely person, and I want to hang out with them. And wasn't that nice? And you feel better. So, you know, that lovely principle in yoga, it's a beautiful thing to say, you know, if you want to feel love, you know, love somebody else. You'll definitely feel love. You want to be happy, make someone else happy. And when we grab for ourselves, for a few moments, we feel okay. And then it's like, well, what next? So, you know, you want something, give it away. And I think those principles have never really been looked at as seriously as you know, it's not an option. But maybe maybe we can all around the world, all of us yogis, all of us mystics, all of us people who kind of go a little deeper, start to reconsider what our values are and start to bring them into being.
Totally.
And you do that with your wonderful studio. You've been doing that for quite a few years now, very bravely, very courageously. That's why we all love you. And and all the people who come to your place, you're beautiful.
And I really miss your presence here, because it's been a while now, and I actually cannot be more grateful for life to have met you. You're for me, you're one of the very inspiring teachers that that gave me a lot. You, by being who you are, actually, you're shining this light out, and it's just like, again, I said, this is like a ripple effect you're giving us, and you gave me, and I am spreading it out. And a lot of light is coming. You can't just dispel darkness with more darkness. It's just like by bringing more light, you just bring light here and there, and then it's like and this is exactly my hope with what we're living, is to really connect, to see what's most important to us, to use this space to you know, to shine, to connect, to really have this like more compassion with ourselves and bring this compassion more to
Yes.
the world. The, you know, loving kindness. It's not hard. It's
That's
there.
right.
Just
That's
explore
right.
it. Just bring it. I mean, if we can just have this
Yes.
place of shifting our perception on looking at the things around us, this is what keeps hope actually for me. Being, I
Beautiful.
haven't, I wasn't born here. I could just easily leave, but I love this place, and
Right.
this is where I feel, you know, I can, I can bring something. I have a task here to do. You know, there's
Yes.
something that it's not a coincidence. You know, my family decided to come back here while it was like very shitty and challenging.
Amazing.
But then
Amazing.
also a decision to stay was another thing that I felt deeply connected to, as, you know, moving from business sector into the non-governmental sector and then into this place of
Incredible.
where I am right now. And just, you know, again, as I said, it's just you always say this, yoga is invitational. It's just, you know, you
Yeah.
invite people to maybe embark on this journey of self-discovery.
Yeah.
Maybe, maybe,
That's
maybe
right.
find your
Maybe.
life. Maybe.